Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to have on my third on-air guest tonight. He's become a near household name in the techie gamer circles surrounding such titles as EVE Online, Shatter, Oolite, Don't Die, and of course, most notably, for the game Kerbal Space Program, for which he can arguably be credited with both the most Kerbal deaths as well as saves. And surprisingly enough, he has taught us that sometimes in space, it's okay to just get out and push. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you Mr. Scott Manley.
Hello!
Nice to have you down, man. Thank you so very much for coming down.
Oh, I'm glad to be down, I guess. By the way, it's don't starve, not don't die.
Don't starve. My apologies. I was doing it off the top of my head, and I was...
Yes.
I'm sorry.
A wonderful game, that, with lots of animals and stuff running around. It's very cool.
Exactly so. So, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Mr. Manley, and in this case, I really shouldn't call you that. I would normally do that as a sign of respect, but considering that we've actually seen Mr. Manley on with you before, which would be your dad, Charles.
Right, that would Chuck Manley.
Chuck, I will try to refrain from saying that at this point. Okay. Anyway, for those that are unfamiliar with Scott, Scott has become very popular in and amongst the Kerbal Space Program circles, mostly because of various other people that have been under his tutelage. In some cases, some for better, some for worse, including, let's see here, Algio Kerman, Bill Kerman, Bilford Kerman, Bob Kerman, Buzz Kerman, Chadden, Charlie, Corman, Ken Hatt, Keldon, Kenbury, Lemmy, Marthy, Richsey, Ronbu, Samwise, Shellbass, and of course, many, many, many different clones of Jebediah Kerman. Some of which have actually landed safely, others, not so much.
Some of them landed in one piece.
Some of them did.
And at least one of them, Charlie, actually transcended reality and shot off into space at 100 kilometers per second.
Which I thought was absolutely adorable.
Yes. He became the Star Child.
What I found interesting when I was searching through some of the videos that you'd done from previously is that you may have, this may be just biased because of the way that I was looking for stuff, but it would seem whenever you had a rocket on the launch pad in KSP that really needed to have docking clamps to hold on to it to keep it upright, and it just collapsed under its own weight sideways. Charlie Kerman seemed to be the only one where if something fell over to the side, he was ever the one to always survive those.
He was my VTOL pilot for a long time.
Yes.
And there was one case the entire rocket fell over and the plane landed on its wheels and just rolled away with him inside.
You get the funny feeling that maybe there's a hidden thing about him, the same way that Jebediah has got his.
There may be. Jebediah, we all know, is brave and stupid.
Yes.
Whereas everybody else has let one or the other.
Yes.
But, I think Charlie has luck.
I think that's probably about as good as it's going to get. He's got a luck dragon just suddenly flying overhead suddenly brings to mind. Supposedly, Jebediah has a personality listed. Now this may not be true. I've heard that his personality profile in the configuration is badass specifically.
Which breaks down to being brave and stupid.
Somewhere along the way, exactly.
Yes. And I think a bit of both works pretty well, apparently.
Excellent. Okay, now I've got a couple people who over here in Second Life, well, at least one of which is already laughing. So just to go ahead and make sure that we're all on the same page over here, one of the things that Scott did, which made me laugh to no end, was shortly after. Let's give everybody a little bit of information about KSP first, because I want to make sure that everybody's on board, because I mention about it, I talk about it once in a while. How do you describe KSP to people?
It is a sandbox that lets you build aircraft, spacecraft, space stations, and then crash them spectacularly. And it does a pretty good job of simulating physics. It gives you many great ways to crash and destroy things.
This is true enough. This is about where it got all kinds of funny for me. When I came into it shortly before 13 came on board, which there is a fully featured demo version available as a download.
Which is 13, right? Version 13.
13.2.3, whatever that is. But it doesn't have all of the latest bells and whistles. But for somebody who really wants to have the chance to see how pyrotechnical they can be, it's a good starting off point.
It has many possibilities for pyrotechnic destruction on a grand scale.
As I've said to people before, it's kind of like when you want to have all kinds of, fireworks to show off to people how entertained you are and how much you enjoy something. Sometimes you can have the fireworks before the actual event, and that's pretty much what KSP ends up being when you don't know what you're doing at first.
Yes, well, I mean, KSP is a perfect example of learning from your mistakes. I mean, it is amazing how many people make mistakes, and then, after a bit of crashing, they're suddenly, astrodynamicists, rocket scientists.
Yes. And who is it? Julie is over here saying, so it's kind of like the early days of rocketry. Kind of. Except that...
But with little green men.
With little... Yeah, now that's one of the running jokes that I've had too, that Kerbin has only two native species, grass and sentient grass.
Yes.
And that's where the running joke comes from. One of these days I'm going to make an avatar of a Kerman in Second Life. One of these days whenever I get around to it. One of the things that Scott did that really made me laugh big time when one of the later versions came out, 18, I think it was in 18 specifically, you found, after much prodding from people, the magic boulder.
Oh, that was 17, yes.
It was 17, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I found it, right?
Yes.
And then I proceeded to describe it in terms of the Happy Fun Ball.
Yes, you did.
From Saturday Night Live.
Warning! Yes, I have the whole thing. Pregnant women, the elderly, and children under 10 should avoid prolonged exposure to the magic boulder.
Do not taunt magic boulder.
The magic boulder may suddenly accelerate to dangerous speeds. Yes, I wrote out the whole damn thing over here because I just needed to laugh so hard. One of the things that made this funny for me is that you went through all of the things that you've done in Kerbal Space Program because KSP for you is like, as I've understood it, and I'm not going to ask you to divulge anything that's going to be identifiable. KSP is like going to work at home in a way, as I've understood it. Now, I do not begin to understand, or I have not asked.
That's not strictly true. I studied for over a decade. I worked as an astronomer, an astro, specifically in dynamics. And so I learned all the important stuff about how spaceships really move in the universe. And the thing is, most spaceship games, spacecraft don't move like that. So my degrees didn't actually help me particularly much in video games.
Oh, so and wait, you mean this whole thing with the original Battlestar Galactica, Vipers really shouldn't turn like that?
Yeah, no, none of that stuff. But they had kind of cool disco music in that, so I forgive them a little.
Yeah, there's that.
But yeah, no, I have long since stopped being a professional astronomer and become a professional coder. But yeah, when Kerbal Space Program came along, it was suddenly there was this game here. And all these people that had no idea how to play the game. And I was like, hey, I know how to fix that. Let me explain to you guys how to actually fly a rocket.
And you have. And
yes, there is a whole range of people that can now not crash spacecraft.
This is true. And fortunately, I would like to say I'm one of them. My problem is that I can't get it to run under my version of Ubuntu Linux at the moment. Mainly because I've got a motherboard problem that I have to build up a whole brand new machine. But the Windows, this is like the only reason I actually still have a Windows XP partition for like just KSP.
Well, they are working on, they're porting it to Unity 4, which has Linux support, so I'm sure you will get native support very soon.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I heard that. I heard that there are a couple of folks that are beta right now, which is kind of funny to me. A beta of a beta program. I mean, that's
Yeah,
just
there's the testing team, and there's all these like little cliques that get early access and whatever, and I can't tell you what they've got access to right now. Even like they're all NDA'd up, let's say.
No, which is perfectly understandable. As I understand it, you've gotten some heads up on stuff occasionally yourself, which I will not ask you to either confirm nor deny, simply because I would like to believe that I'm talking to somebody who is like in the know for a change.
In the know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I frequently I know what they're doing wrong as well.
which is fine. A question is coming through, by the way, on Second Life from Stormfront, who has asked this of me before. Now, I've understood that the answer at this point is no, and I don't know if you know one way or the other anyway. But the question is, do you have any idea if KSP is going to be on Steam ever? Now, as I've understood it, I think
they
the guy said...
They are absolutely working on Steam, but
okay.
No timetable. That's not, yes, of course they're working on Steam. They're not going through Greenlight. This is going to be an official Steam product, and presumably that means integrating the whole Kerbal Spaceport with Steam Workshop. So yeah, Steam version is definitely a priority, but I can't tell when or how far out that is.
No, that's cool. You know what? I did not know that. I thought that I'd heard otherwise. So I've learned something tonight, which is good. Oh, this is wonderful. Somehow or other, my Second Life client has crashed. Guys, I will be back into Second Life in just a couple of moments. Don't worry about it. I'm not leaving the stream, not by a long shot, so it's not a problem. Anyway, let me talk with you a little bit about what. I wanted to talk to you, yes, a lot about KSP because, I mean, geez, I've enjoyed the hell out of watching what you've done and trying to wrap my head around the math because, admittedly, I never studied this kind of stuff. I didn't take physics in high school, which some people have actually said, why?
It really helps.
Well, it's a little bit late for me now. So, high school is
never too late to learn orbital mechanics.
So I'm being told.
You know when it's too late to learn orbital mechanics?
When I'm in the
ground.
When
you're falling towards the ground on a suborbital trajectory. That's when it's too late, right?
No, actually, I will say no, because you actually proved during the Kerbalo 17 trip that it is okay to EVA while you're still in Atmo and pull it off.
Totally.
You sick puppy. What had happened was it was the anniversary of the Apollo 17 launch, right?
I think it was Apollo 17. That's right.
Right.
And I got into the idea that I was going to recreate that. Well, somebody else had started doing it. I was like, oh, I'll come in, look, and then I spent half an hour designing my escape tower, and then 2 minutes on the rocket.
Well, no, wait a second. Let's be fair. Your escape tower worked like a champ.
It was brilliant.
It did.
I was so proud of that escape tower.
You even used it a little bit later for acceleration.
Yes. Well, we weren't going to let those rockets go to waste.
Well, exactly. But what had happened was that Scott had actually built a rocket that I won't say completely accurately, but well enough replicated what the Saturn V mission was like, where you had a command module and a lander craft and your first, second, third stages, and he...
and they were kind of ass backwards, so you had to come out and turn around and pick up the lunar module, and before it would come out. That was a big thing.
Now, the problem was... now
I didn't have enough fuel.
Well, never mind that. I believe the term that, to use one of the internet memes at this point, you had all of the great God Murphy over your shoulder for that flight.
Yes,
Every possible thing that could have possibly gone wrong did, and a couple of new ones.
Yes, we invented new ways that things went wrong.
Yes. For instance, one cowling that did not leave correctly, which was annoying, to put it nicely.
I was like, I can't talk because this thing is in my way.
And of course, the simple thing to do was just to turn around and bop it out of the way with the nose
Bop it
cone.
out of the way like a baseball bat, right? Yeah.
Unfortunately, which of course took your lander craft and chucked it halfway across the globe at that point.
Yeah.
Which didn't help matters.
Yeah, no, it did not.
But at the very least, a lot of fun was had for that. And
Oh, yeah.
I think
Many
that's,
giggles.
yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's making this particular program and some more like it. So, what's the word that I'm looking for? Engaging, because it really
I think
is.
the potentiality for epic fail is quite important, you know, and not only, you know, epic fail happens to everyone. It's a question of how you deal with it, right? How you deal with failure is at least as important as how you deal with success.
Nice to know that you're actually stealing from some really good people.
Who am I stealing from?
Oh God, I gotta try to remember now. How we
Is
do
it
with
Star Trek or something?
you know what? I don't remember. I'm
Is that a
wondering.
Spock thing? How we deal with failure is at least as important as how we deal with, I don't know,
It might have been Star Trek 2. That's
Star
what it
Trek
was.
2, which is actually my favorite of the Star Trek movies.
That's a good choice. That's a good choice. For me, it's a toss up between that and the first Star Trek. I really liked the first one.
I mean, I went to see the first one several times, but it was only because I was a kid and didn't really appreciate that there were better things. But, you know, at the same time, I thought that Flash Gordon and Star Wars were even better.
Are we talking about the Queen?
Yes, the Queen Flash Gordon is the best.
It's
So good.
just because it's so bad.
No, it is great. And you know, the thing is, I watched this again as a grown-up, and I realized that all the women in that are wearing bikinis. Like, that is the only thing that the wardrobe guy came up with, was like, we shall put this princess in another bikini.
With a giant neck brace thing that comes up over her head.
Pretty much. It was I loved that movie. Although I was kind of amusing when I came to San Francisco, I got myself a DVD player and I went to the local like Virgin Megastore or whatever at that time to find a copy. And the guy said, "Oh yeah, we have it." I couldn't find it on any of the shelves there. It wasn't in the sci-fi section. I was like, "Oh, where is it?" He said, "Oh, we have that in stock." And he took me over to the gay cinema section. At which point I was like, have I misremembered something from my youth?
Okay, that's one way to look at it. I never would have thought that, but okay.
I can see why. I
Yeah,
can see
well,
why,
yes.
but, you know.
Yes, there is that.
There is that. But, you know, the women in that movie are hot.
This is true. This is true.
Okay. Pardon me, I'm just trying to dock a spacecraft to a space station right now because...
You son of a, nice.
What? You know, I'm
No,
I'm
that's perfectly fine. I completely understand. If I had the opportunity, I'd be doing it too.
You know, I'm sitting at a computer. I can't really do much else. I just realized that your voice will all come over in my recording. That's cool.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, I mean, hey, look at it this way. It was very nice the first time that I had stopped in on one of your streams, and at the time you were doing Shatter, and it was great. He's doing this thing. I got the notice. I went over there, and I come over, and he's playing this breakout clone is the way to start it off as.
And it's all technoed up with bosses and stuff. It's kind of cool.
It is. And all of a sudden I actually hear, "Shoot and Tribble. I haven't gotten any questions from you in a while." And I'm like, oh shit, I'm actually known now. What the hell?
Well, the problem is that you actually asked me a question,
Yes,
and I
I
have
did.
been so incredibly busy that I keep on meaning to do this, because you asked me for like help in how to get into space and calculate delta V's and all that. And that's like the video that I keep meaning to make, and I keep writing it up and never deciding it's good enough. And it's a hard one to explain, like delta V, in a way that doesn't take 4 hours.
Oh, I completely understand. I kind of figured as much too.
But I want to. I'm trying to do so. I like to do the science videos as well. I made that video about how to build a gun that can shoot things into space.
Yes.
You know,
That was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, well, it was just like people had these basic concepts. It's like, no, it's not as simple as putting more gunpowder in there. That doesn't work. There's fundamental physics that gets in the way.
That's where I'm going to call BS on you. If we can just add more boosters in KSP, it should just be a matter of just more explosion on the ass end of something to launch it. Who are you trying to kid?
There are limits to that. There are limits, right?
Well, yeah, Chunky Salsa comes to mind right now.
Yeah, well, you got to have stages and.
Yeah, this is true. Stormfront. I'm sorry, a second. Stormfront. The answer is yes. The guys are working on getting into Steam. Don't have any kind of a timetable at the moment, but that is something that they are really working specifically towards. Apparently, over in Second Life, the region where I'm in, apparently had this big everybody got logged out at once, so a lot of people just missed stuff.
I didn't even know that Second Life was still around, to be honest. I had friends that used to develop that, I guess, but I don't know if they are there now. Actually, okay. I don't know. There are people I know that I once called friends, but I don't know where they are these days.
That's okay.
That's what LinkedIn's for, isn't it?
You know what? I don't know. I had promised myself 2 years ago, when my birthday came around, that I would specifically try to utilize all the new 21st century gadget gizmo stuff, and so I got myself on Twitter, got myself on G+, I got myself over on Facebook, and I'm trying a whole bunch of things just to see, do I like this? Do I not want to do this?
How long have you been doing this internet radio thing?
I've been doing this now for 3 years. This is starting into my 4th year now.
Because, internet radio is how I really got my start in the tech business. I wrote an internet radio system called MP3 Serve back in 1997.
Nice.
And I did this radio show from the observatory. I was drunk one night, and I was I was so drunk from after the pub that I was like, I need to do some work right now, otherwise I will be hungover. So I went to the observatory, got myself a cup of coffee, and the next thing I know, I'm on IRC with people and writing an internet radio system so I can play them the music I've got. And that ultimately led to me getting a job out here doing internet radio. Excellent.
Matter of fact,
I haven't done internet radio since.
No, we had somebody in the group who's also done something similar. Wanted an internet server for their in-house in the company, and he was just the guy to set that kind of thing up, which was really cool. Stormfront apparently is also saying, I got a rocket to orbit around the moon and back to well, I'm assuming Kerbin, safely without a single booster on the rocket. Boosters suck. They make the rockets hard to control, which, okay, yeah, that there is something to be said for that.
You should point out that I got a rocket all the way to the surface of the moon and back to Kerbin using only boosters.
Yes, which was amazing to watch. Scott has also something interesting for himself. As the guys at Squad, which is the group that's creating and working on Kerbal Space, what they are doing is they are also planning on different levels of difficulty, which, according to what I've heard, and this may be unofficial at the moment, easy, medium, hard, manly, Jeb.
Yes.
Now, that's
or
the unofficial
depending
word.
upon how you look at it.
Yes.
It's certainly a running joke.
Yeah, exactly.
Abyssal being Abyssal Lurker, who does the really, really crazy stunts, although he hasn't done some in a while, but he built some really cool, just completely automated spacecraft, and he flew to some moons using 3-part rockets. He's kind of like the non-rocket scientist version of me. He doesn't know all the equations. He just does stuff and it works.
That's got to be annoying as all get out, though. Somebody who's got just the feel for it, and it's just, boom, it just happens, and people are just like, all right, slide roll time, give me a calculator over here, I need some sun on this.
Yeah. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, I'm wondering if one of these days somebody might actually write a minimal program, I guess is the only way to put it, that would work in Open Office or in Access, something that would actually say, okay, if you put these parts together, you will still get lift. This will not get lift. Something like that. That's the kind of thing
You
that
mean
one
your
of these
thrust
days.
to weight ratio? You use Kerbal Engineer for that. That's a plug-in for the game. That's the best way to do it.
Okay, see, that's something I haven't
And
known
it
about
will
yet.
tell you like what your thrust to weight ratio is, and it'll estimate your delta V for your mission. So you can figure out whether you're able to get into space, and then once you're in space, how far you can get. You know, that's your numbers. It all comes down to delta V and thrust to weight ratio.
Which should be interesting for folks to try out once in a while, because the stuff that you've demonstrated that you know about, for one thing, as somebody who has never dealt that heavily into mathematics, and I will admit I am an absolute noob when it comes to the actual math of it all, has been real interesting for me to watch and to try to follow. And I know full well that I can't follow it nearly as well as I would like to, but the math that you, in all seriousness, when you've done some of these missions, I've seen where you just like, all right, let's just throw this together, I mean, the earlier, like, 0.13, 0.14s, throw this together, we'll try this together to see what happens. Oh, you know what? Okay, let's put this and this together. Let's see if we can launch this all on its own and see how well it does. And can we orbit something just with launching it off all on its own without anything driving it? How much math did you really put into when you finally got through with, okay, I've crashed enough stuff, let's actually get serious about this? I mean, have you really gone through and just like taken out paper and pencil and started to scribble out equations for yourself with it all?
Right. I mean, it's mostly when I try to set the challenges that I do really brought out the paper and pencil. And the one that I really brought out the paper and pencil for was when I was trying to figure out whether I could EVA back from a moon, back from Gilly, which is a moon around Eve. And so it's kind of like I knew the math to figure out the delta V. And so I started figuring out, ideal circumstances. If I got everything lined up, is it even within the maneuvering budget of this spacesuit?
Okay, now
I came up and I had 150 meters per second to spare. So I was like, I know it's possible. At that point, I then started setting up the mission. But yeah, a lot of the rest of the time, it's like, I think this might be enough. And you can figure out in advance. You can figure out in advance, but generally it's only when you start to get down to the really tiny budgets that you want to start bringing out the numbers. Just basically counteracting gravity, that's your first priority. Once you get into space, then everything's a lot easier. Then it's easier to do numbers.
Yep, and that was one of the ones that I went looking for specifically also. For those that want to find out a little bit about this one, what had happened was Scott had taken... you guys need to know about this a little bit of an in-joke. In Kerbal Space Program, from the earliest days, you've had, generally speaking, 3 main astronauts for your 3-man capsule.
Kerbonauts.
It's Bill Kerman, Bob Kerman, and Jebediah Kerman. No relation. Jebediah is...
the hero. He is the Chuck Norris.
No. See, that's Chuck at least knows that he's his own caricature. Jeb, I think, is just stupid lucky and just attributes it to his own grandioseness, I think.
Okay.
Something like that. I'm trying to remember. They portray him very well in the Kerbal comics. I don't know if you've seen that. Anyway, coming back to that. So Scott went ahead and he landed him on Gilly, which is one of the smallest...
It's like the equivalent of having a moon around Venus, right? A moon the size of a boulder.
Yes, it's exceedingly tiny. It has barely any gravity, but there is gravity, just very little. Give you an idea as to how little gravity. He found out that the safest method to having a spacecraft on Gilly is just to lay it over on its side, gently.
Not even gently. It's hard to do anything violently. You have to actually thrust towards the surface to make it hit. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, there is that. So anyway, what he decided to do was, like I said, get Jebediah out, and with the maneuvering system that he's got on his own body,
on the spacesuit, it has a little jetpack, right?
On the spacesuit, the man maneuvering unit, so to speak.
Just
and,
enough kind of pootering around between spacecraft, not really designed for space travel.
Right. So, and took him from Gilly and sent him back home to Kerbin, which, how many million meters was that?
It was a 50-day journey for him. So he was in a spacesuit for 50 days with no poop bags or anything, I guess.
And no way to scratch his nose.
No way to scratch his nose or his ass or anything. That's pretty much it.
But at least you remembered to bring the parachute. That was
at least I remember to bring the parachute, yes.
Yes.
The point was, from there, I had to leave the little moon surface, and then I had to time it right that I did a little gravity assist swing by around the parent body, which was this extra heavy purple planet.
Oh, it's
and
pretty.
So by exploiting that, you can get extra speed, and that meant that I actually came out with enough velocity that I was able to get an encounter with the home planet.
The very famous Oberth effect, which I am now apparently semi-famous for having asked that. I've actually gotten a number of people who saw my request video for you and have actually commented and said, among other things, it's a good question. All right, I can't wait to see what he's going to do. It's like, I'm just a dumb guy who's just trying to find out how this all works, man. I don't know.
Yeah, go fast, and you go faster, then you do better than if you're trying to go faster when you're slow. I don't know. That's
one way to look at it. Basically,
speed is your friend.
Yes, speed, gravity, falling can be your friend so long as you're not falling too close to something.
Yes. And the restriction on how close you can get is ultimately the limit for how much you can exploit it. So black holes really help you out, except for the fact that they tear you apart.
Yes, spaghettification is not your friend.
Spaghettification.
It's just oh God, I don't ever want to know that they're going to pull that out. Anyway, let me cover...
Pull that out, spaghettify. I get it.
It wasn't intentional, actually. I'm sorry. Anyway, some of the stuff that Scott has talked about in the various videos to really explain to people how to put Kerbal Space Program through its paces, building a rocket, getting into orbit, getting into how to use the system to understand how to get from a lower orbit to a higher orbit, how to deorbit, and using as little power as possible, which that was one thing that surprised the hell out of me. I didn't expect. You showed off that if you burn towards a planet, okay, you need 500 and some odd...
you need 4 times as much, typically.
Yes.
4 times is a magic number. If you go backwards, it's a certain amount, and to go straight towards the planet, it takes 4 times as much fuel.
Which I kind of got, but I didn't realize there's quite that much. Which is one of the reasons why you've utilized that to your advantage for your escape systems for your space stations that you've done.
Yes, the escape pods.
Which, very good idea to finally get those on there for your space station. That was very smart of you to get to that.
Well,
I'm sure that you were just budgeting all of your money so that everything just came out right. Because, I mean, you know about safety first, of course.
Yes. And it just looks cool, really, is what it's all about.
This is true. This is true. Now that we've had way too much fun on this, let me get to some of the real meat that I really want to discuss with you. Item number 1, because you said that KSP does a really nice job of simulating physics space physics in a pretty reliable fashion or reasonable fashion at the very least. From the time that you've actually gotten to get started with it, has there anything about the way that KSP is operated that you've actually looked at and had to sit back and go, that's actually, I did not remember about that. That's right. Or that surprised you about how well it's operated, or conversely, how
I'll say, I'm talking about swinging past planets, for the escape. The first time I did my simulated interplanetary mission, I returned directly without using the Oberth effect, and then I posted the video, and then I realized afterwards, it's like, oh wait, this should totally work. And then I had to post another video and explain, oh yeah, this actually works. So yeah, that happened.
Which then, of course, keeps reminding me of the hell that you went through answering my question, because that took a lot of time.
Well, it's important to fully deal with these things, let's say.
That's true. The question that I had asked Scott on a video one time was about the Oberth effect, and if it makes sense to like only use your engines at a certain point in the orbit. And he did a comparison video, which I'm assuming from the look of it took you about the better part of 4 hours to do. It looked like.
It took a while, I remember.
But he went through, and it was really interesting for me because I learned a lot about it. But I also started to think about, would it not be interesting to find out if the guys doing MechJeb were to set up a specific procedure for MechJeb to actually utilize a long-term boost, especially for like your Tony probe systems and such, when you've got like these little itty bitty teeny tiny guys.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if they would ever do something like that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of very specific stuff that, the more specific you get, the more complex the tools. And MechJeb perhaps isn't necessarily the place for it, let's say.
But there might be a way of having people script their own stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, there's Automate, where you can literally type in, fire rockets, wait for this. You can script the whole thing, basically.
I saw that. I didn't get the chance to really delve into that yet.
It works surprisingly well, apparently. I haven't been using MechJeb so much recently. I don't know, largely because people just whine all the time when I use it. They somehow think that it would... They somehow think that it limits my ability or whatever. Like, oh, you couldn't have flown that without MechJeb. It's like, I just flew it without MechJeb. Yeah.
Actually, I'm wondering if they're going to build up a secondary version that only gives the display information, like the surface information, the orbital information, without the automated portion, or if anybody's gotten something like that just yet. Because all that surface and orbital information, that's a great piece to have without having to flip back and forth to the map.
Yeah, it is it's a lifesaver, I tell you.
Now, the stuff for KSP that's been surprising for you, like I was mentioning before about the original request, with the simulations that are done in this off-the-shelf program that's been built up by a bunch of just independent guys who just decided that they were going to do something like this, with the amount of computing power that's, again, literally off the shelf, off the shelf that you can just buy just anywhere for a couple of $100s at this point. I mean, back when the top of the line computers used to be $2,000, and then everything was down from that every Christmas season for a while. Now we got stuff that's like $500 maybe, and is blowing rings around this stuff. How has this stuff been for you to see the explosion of computing power? I mean, you've been doing programming for a long time. You've been old school.
I've been doing program for 30 years.
And
I started when I was a 8-year-old kid.
Yeah, what did you start on? Did you start on a Commie 64?
No, it was a ZX81.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, you go back quite a ways.
1K of memory. Yeah, I was jealous of my friends with Commodore 64s.
Wow, that goes back quite a ways now, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. That is the world.
Yeah, so now, I mean, I'm not going to ask your age because a gentleman doesn't do that. But I mean,
I just turned 40. There you go.
You son of a.
Wow.
Okay, you are actually younger than I am. I keep claiming to be 39, or at least around 39.
I just learned to accept it.
Yeah, no, it's become a running joke. I actually stole the joke from Jack Benny from way back when. I'm actually going to be turning 44 in March. So we're nearly the same age.
Yeah. Well,
And so you've grown up. You've seen the huge change from when the stuff used to be measured in 1 megahertz speed chips.
1 megahertz processors with 1K of memory. There you go.
And now we're looking at multi gigahertz processors with multiple cores and 2 terabyte, 3 terabyte drives, just like nothing off the shelf.
I'm talking about petabytes of data with my business, right?
Jesus.
It's ridiculous.
It's
And I
hellacious.
can never have enough. You know? It is staggering, and I wonder how far it can continue. And I hope it does continue, because that would make all sorts of awesome things happen. But equally well, I wouldn't be surprised if it just tails off and that's the end of things. But
Well,
you know,
I was going to say, it should prove to be interesting, because recently announced was the ability of printing 3D integrated circuits now for
right. I mean, these are
processors and
continual
such.
assaults on this physics that keeps trying to suppress Moore's law and keep it down. But every now and then, Moore comes back with more awesomeness and more tricks to get around those limitations that physics throws at it.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, the freaking thumb drives the size of a
Terabyte
zipper
thumb
pull.
drives,
Yes,
right?
I heard about that. And I remember a couple of years ago doing my FM radio show for a while, where I was talking with somebody on air about setting up a 1 gigabyte RAID array using 250 gig. No, wait a second. No, it was
1 terabyte.
Yes, a 1 tera drive using 250s, 4 250s on one machine.
Right.
And at the time, I was thinking that was just absolutely just hellaciously staggering. And now it's almost nothing. It's
Right,
like,
my
oh,
desktop has 6 terabytes of disk space, right? That's just... And I'm using it up all the time. I'm having to delete stuff every single day to make room for more work.
That's because you're generating so many videos. Who are you kidding?
Yeah. Well, I got to pretty much record everything and then edit down the good stuff and then talk all over it.
Which is fun. At least we get to enjoy that.
Yes.
Okay. So the videos you've been doing for the longest time, what has been your favorite game to be discussing at this point? Other than, of course, the freebie version of Frontier Elite at this point, which, by the way, I found my original galactic map from the version that I had
from
the
that?
original.
Wow.
Yes.
I had Elite Frontier, and I remember the Galactic map. What I remember about the original Elite Frontier was that there were many places marked on that map that you could never get to in the regular game because they were so far out there, and the game had like a 1-year limit. And after 1 year, if you didn't bring your spacecraft in to be serviced, things would start breaking, and eventually you just find yourself floating in space with a dead ship.
I did not know that.
Yeah, but I figured out that the game internally stored the distance on the map using a 16-bit integer.
You hacked the game.
No. I was just moving it around, and then I noticed that one day as I was moving the cursor out, that suddenly I was able to jump, and it was saying 65,357 light years, and I was like, wait a second. So it turned out that the light year distant calculator thing would loop around at a certain point, and so you could triangulate and get to any point in the galaxy. And so I remember going out and visiting all these things by exploiting this wormhole effect, as I called it at the time. I didn't hack the game. That would be boring.
No, that would be wrong, too. I mean, we would never do
There was a
that.
time I used to hack games.
But, of course, again, that would be wrong. We would never do that.
Yes.
Unlike KSP, where they suggest every once in a while, sure, yeah, why not? Fuel consumption? Pfft, who needs that?
Yes, as I'm just doing that right now because I'm flying an airship around to see how this magnetic thing works, and I realized that it doesn't have enough fuel. Because, you know what? Moving an airship takes a lot of fuel.
Wait
Surprising.
a second. We're talking about a dirigible?
ASP. Yes, a dirigible.
Somebody actually built a dirigible?
Yes, there's an airship pack, and there's also another thing called Kerbal Attachment System where you can put an electromagnet on a cable and use it to pick up and move things around. So I'm trying to fly this airship over to another spacecraft and service the contents of it or whatever.
Wait a minute. An electromagnet that you could connect onto a spaceship?
Yeah, so you can pick up other spacecraft from my giant airship and carry them around.
Forgive me for being a little bit familiar here. Scotty, you do realize that that's like one of the only pieces that you need for the Eagle to make your Moonbase Alpha work?
Oh, right, yeah. Well, I'm totally doing the Sky Crane thing. But, yeah, that's totally planned. Actually, launching the Eagle, the Eagle may not go in this current one because I'm trying to go 100% reusable, and the
that's
problem
your
with
new
100%
thing.
reusable is that you can only shift like 10 tons into space at a time, and I can't fly the Eagle into space using that budget, so I'm not sure what I'll do. But I've definitely got myself a little Sky Crane thing that flies around and picks things up and plants them on the surface.
That's a very interesting idea.
Flies around in nuclear rockets. Nuclear rockets are awesome.
See, last week's newscast, I actually had Nerva, I believe it was Roman Emperor died, and I specifically called you out on that one because I know how much you just love your Nerva engines.
Oh, yeah. And, well, 800 ISP, dude. What's not to like other than anemic thrust?
Well, that and you end up having... Well, now, see, there's the problem.
What,
You drop one of
heads?
those things on Kerbin, and people turning green isn't exactly out of the ordinary, I guess, so that would be a problem.
No, it wouldn't.
Well, it would be, because you wouldn't know who's actually going to be able to hulk out on you and who doesn't from the radiation left over.
True.
That would be a problem.
I guess.
Yes. Oh, this is great. Somebody's Stormfront is also saying, blame Parkinson's law. One of the corollaries is that data will expand to fill the available storage.
God, don't I know that? Yes.
Yes, we do. And I should know, because over here in my office, I have, among other hard drives, I still have some SCSI hard drives. I still have my original zip drive, back from way back when.
I have a pile of hard disks sitting on my desk that I keep on meaning to back up. They're like 20 gig hard disks.
And
Oh, no, wait, this one's 200 gigs, and it's just basically considered useless.
yeah, isn't that sad?
Yeah.
The funny part of it is, though, these smaller drives, I mean, if you had a student and you just slapped on any old, little version of Linux and just dropped it into some poor, Windows 2000 machine, it'd be all kinds of happy and reasonably workable.
I love Linux. I have some of my code in the kernel. Well, maybe not anymore, but I did write kernel code at one point. I did crap in the TCP stack, if I remember rightly.
That kind of stuff just blows my mind.
It's just like anything else.
Yeah, you have to learn how to do it.
Yeah, pretty much. You need incentive, and once you have the incentive, you find that solving problems is actually pretty easy.
All right.
Okay.
Seeing as how I'm held you over a hell of a lot longer than I had expected, because I'm just enjoying the hell out of talking with you.
Oh,
Damn it. Thank you.
it's okay. I'm enjoying the hell out of this beer right now. It's a Drake's IPA. Drake's from San Leandro.
Okay.
It's 7% alcohol. It's an IPA. I mean, probably one of the best West Coast IPAs, I would say. Just, plugging it.
But of course, we would never plug something that would be wrong.
No.
Not that you're going to get anything out of it, of course.
Not that I'm going to get anything out of it, though,
Maybe
they
maybe
are
in a week or
almost
so.
a local.
Oh, good. All right, so let's see. What last item could I throw your way? Well, on a personal. I'm sorry.
You were asking about other games or something.
Yes, I was going to ask you what other games are you planning on tackling? Have you been enjoying the hell out
See,
of
this
most?
is the big thing because I really would love to grow my channel to more than just Kerbal Space Program, but I always get a bit of whining when I post other things. But Obviously I love Eve. Played so many hours on that, and can definitely talk about that forever. I just kind of feel a need right now to educate people on the older games that they perhaps have missed. People keep talking about space combat games where they follow like Newton's laws of motion, and you're flying around, and the direction you're moving isn't necessarily the direction your spacecraft's facing. And they talk about Independence War. That's one I think that does that. But the guy that wrote Independence War, he originally did a game back in the 80s called Warhead, which is the same thing, but it's like 1980s barely filled polygons. And that had a great story and everything to it as well. Like, it borrowed liberally from science fiction. There's a whole section where you start dealing with a berserker that is going to attack Earth and takes a particular interest in you, and you have to at one point you just basically have to run around the map as he chases you, and then you trick him into following you into a black hole. It's it's a great little game that I kind of want to show, but it's really, really old, like late 80s. Modern stuff though, I don't know, I really loved Strike Suit Zero, which is this just epic, space combat game. I was giggling like a little girl the whole time. It is so anime. It is so fun. There's missile trails and speed lines and lens flare out the wazoo. I love that game. But I can't do it justice.
It's okay. No, I saw that. That's become like your new big thing recently. You got 4 or 5 videos for that one, if I remember right.
I only did 4, and then the last one hasn't really done much in the way of traffic. I literally got it. I saw the trailer, and I felt I was getting the flu, so I made like 3 videos, went to bed, woke up with terrible flu, and then I played the next one, and nobody cared. So I'll probably have to just privately finish it out myself.
Yeah, I've been a little bit worried about that. I've heard a couple of vids over the last couple of months where it sounds like you're a little sniffly and...
I go on. No, I always have a lot of allergies for my nose. My nose gets a little bit... But I just, I really got the flu hardcore. It was
damn
bad.
Sorry to hear that. Every once in a while when I hear you like that, I'm just like, I want to say I hope that you're doing well, but, I don't want to...
I'm Scottish,
Okay.
I'll be fine.
Okay. I just
want to see more people, tuning in. That's my thing.
Okay. I've got apparently I've got 2 questions that have just come through. One's a legit spacey question. Question for you: Atlas V or Delta IV?
Oh God. Well, I think Delta's the cheaper option, so I'd probably go with the Atlas.
Oh, of course, go if money is no option, go big and bad.
I mean, you're seriously like, I'd do that, or the Proton rocket. That's man rated. Just don't go with Sea Launch. Sea Launch right now, their main business seems to be that they will tow their launch site out to the middle of the ocean so they can be in a perfect position to launch your rocket into the sea.
Okay, as somebody who grew up right near the ocean, I literally grew up on Long Island, down near the ocean, where every season...
Long Island, New York?
Yes.
Which part of Long Island?
Down on the South Shore in the towns of Babylon.
Okay.
So I was like 2 miles away from... I don't know if you know who Captain Kangaroo was.
I don't know who Captain Kangaroo was, but he sounds like a jumpy kind of fellow.
Actually, he used to do kids' Saturday morning TV shows, live action, out of New York City for, decades. Anyway, so every year during the summer, there would always be a hurricane that would blow through. Always.
Yeah.
So to hear about these groups that want to take their launch platform and tug it out into the deep water, No, me, I'm thinking to myself, all you need is a couple of storms to come through that just suddenly swirl up, and that would be very expensive.
Yeah, I don't think they launch during the hurricanes. I think they wait for the hurricanes to stop.
Yeah, but even so, every once in a while, I'm the kind of person that does not view the ocean as being forgiving ever.
But it does mean that you can get on the equator.
It's true. This is true. Wouldn't it be nice to do it, though, from, I don't know, Panama, where it's nice and pretty, and you could use all that sulfur
Kazakhstan. How about that?
Sure, why not? I mean, I hear it's nice during the winter. Well, I mean, what better way to make relations better than to have an occasional aborted launch that jettisons fuel all over the place in large burning several-ton chunks? Well, see, part of the problem
that doesn't work so well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I made a joke a couple of weeks ago about the Russian launch that ended up aborting with a nuclear payload that ended up in Canada. And every year I keep talking about how Canada took a nuke for us.
That wasn't an abort, though. That was it got into orbit and then failed to circularize. It stayed up for several orbits, if I remember. That was a RORSat, right? That was actually a satellite with a nuclear reactor in it. So
yes.
I don't know if you know this story. The Russians, they had this whole Cold War thing going on.
Well, so the Russians and us here because didn't want to talk.
Yeah, so they were wanting to monitor U.S. shipping, so they put these big radar satellites, and because they're radar, they had to be in low Earth orbit because radar goes like as inverse, quadruple force or whatever. So the closer you are, distance really matters. So they had to put them in really low orbit, and they had to be really big because they're radar. And that meant that if they wanted to put solar panels on it, they would have to be huge, and because they're low down, they would decay in like a month. So they figured the only way to power these things was with a nuclear effing reactor. It was a metal-cooled reactor as well. They had liquid sodium running through the core to cool these things. And so they would run in this orbit for like a couple of years, and then when they ran out of maneuvering fuel, they had one last operation. That would be they would detach the reactor core and boost it into a high parking orbit. The problem was that sometimes that went wrong. And
that's
one
bad
example.
day.
Yeah. Well, one example is when they take the core, they would leave the cooling system behind, right? And so these pipes that would be designed to carry liquid metal, those would all get like cut. And the liquid metal would leak out into space and form into little spherical blobs of metal like shotgun pellets traveling at orbital speeds. Radioactive shotgun pellets, for good measure.
Again, that's not a good day.
Yeah. Yeah, RORSats. Look them up. They're kind of interesting.
Sounds
but
like
the Soviets also put a space station into space with a gun in it. Did you hear about that?
I did not.
Yeah, the Almaz. So the Soviets, after America beat them to the moon, basically. So they kept going, and then they decided, we'll try to do this whole like space station thing. And Soviets really set all the standards for space stations.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And they started out with the Salyut program, but the Salyut program was only ever approved because it was perfect cover for the Almaz program. And the Almaz program was basically manned military stations. And one of the first ones they sent up included a gun designed to shoot at like satellites and things. So there you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Somehow I shouldn't be surprised, but I still kind of am.
Yeah.
With how the relations were between the Soviet Union and America at the time. I mean, just yeah.
Yeah. I hear you.
I'm glad that we survived the mid-'60s. I guess the best way to put it.
Yeah, so am I, because I wouldn't even be here if,
yeah, that's true.
if we had survived that.
You've done well for yourself, at least.
Yeah, I've done well so far.
Which is good. I, for one, am proud for you, for what it's worth.
Thank you. Okay. Well, anyway.
Yep, and the last item that was asked over here was, had you heard about the huge Firefest in Eve?
Which one? Oh, you mean the Battle of Asakai. The Battle of Asakai, which I missed, unfortunately. I had the flu And then I looked at my my chat when I logged in, and it was just like,
Everybody get your ass to Asuka. Stuff's going on. Stuff's exploding.
yeah, that was a DBRB, the big red boat, and they were originally planning on hot dropping somebody in his Titan, supported by like a giant fleet of spacecraft. Unfortunately, he pushed the wrong button, and he jumped in on his own with a spacecraft worth several $1,000s.
Real world
So of course,
dollars.
everybody suddenly started going after him because everybody likes to attack super capitals that are on their own.
Yeah, I heard some of it, and I'd seen some video, and as somebody who really hasn't played it before and really didn't follow it, it is really difficult to follow what was going on. All I know is that the only thing I could compare it to was a very, very angry hornet's nest.
Yeah, there was like 3,000 people. The thing is that there's some videos out there that show it in somewhat real time. The problem is that when you have that many people, it starts to lag. And apparently they caused more lag in that battle. It wasn't the biggest battle ever in history, actually. The biggest one was somewhere else where we killed even more super capitals. Super capitals being the biggest and most expensive spaceships in the game, generally costing, the price of a car. A used car these days, but,
The
still.
car nonetheless.
A car nonetheless, yeah. Thousands of dollars worth of, digital pixels.
It just amazes me, the stuff, and just wow.
Yeah, people like their fancy toys.
Speaking of toys, what is going to be coming up in the pipe for you in the upcoming, I don't know, month or so? You planning on doing some more third-party games? In this case, meaning something other than KSP, or
Yeah.
what are you planning on
Definitely.
doing for us?
Well, as I said, I'd really like to do a thing in this Warhead game. There's also this old Babylon 5 game that I really want to show people about, because I remember this. It was like a fan game created. It was pretty high quality. But they had a problem recently. They get hacked, and I felt that it was like, I got to introduce people to this, Oh.
Do you remember which one it was?
Yeah, it's called I Found Her, and it's basically like a Babylon 5 game.
Yes, I had heard. I remember about that one a while ago. Wasn't it based off of? Oh God, what the hell was it called? Free Flight, Free.
No, I think it had its own engine. There is a free space.
Free Space. There we go.
Yeah, there's a free
that was
space
Babylon. Not Babylon. What was I thinking? Battlestar Galactica.
Battlestar
They've done
Galactica,
a version with
yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, this is Babylon 5. It's different universe.
Oh, I know. Oh, I know. It was originally the CGI was all done on video toasters way back when. I remember.
Because, right?
I still have an Amiga 2000 over here.
Oh, I never owned an Amiga. I was an Atari ST guy.
Heretic.
You know what? I did a lot of MIDI. Mostly to justify having an Atari ST.
Well, of course. That
I ended up with it because it was cheaper, basically. And ended up having two of them.
no, perfectly understandable. So God, there's just so many things that I want to end up talking with you about, and I could go on for way, way, way too long, and I don't want to wear out my welcome the first time because I want to be able to have you get back again someday. How about this then, as a good closer for it all, and it's got nothing to do specifically with KSP or any of these other fancy dancy games at this point.
Fancy Dancy?
You wait for it.
Okay.
Going back to the early game consoles that we grew up with, where it was
Okay.
the Ataris, the Commie 64s, the PETs, the ColecoVision, the Intellivision, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well,
Wow, that's really old. Okay.
yes. Well, we are older gentlemen, are we not? All right, we are gentlemen. What older system that maybe you had experience with would you pit up against today as far as to pitting up old console versus current console for just pure entertainment value?
I've never really owned a console that old. The first console I bought was actually a Super Nintendo, the SNES.
Okay, that still puts you into the 16-bit, right?
Yeah, but I thought that was really the pinnacle of 2D games. Like, that really... And they had some 3D stuff, and it was, funnily enough, it was the 3D stuff that made me buy it originally. I saw Star Fox, or Star Wing, as it was called in Britain, and I realized I really wanted that, and that was the one I bought. And then, after that, of course, I got into Final Fantasy and of course, learned that Mario really was a really fantastic game. But I think, Super Nintendo, Super NES was the finest, console ever made. I mean, bar none, as far as I'm concerned.
And the SNES had let's see if I remember it correctly. It was a D-pad and 2 or 4 buttons.
It had 4 buttons plus 2 shoulder buttons plus a start and a select button. So you had 8 buttons plus a D-pad.
That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I thought it was so darn playable. Like, there was a lot of terrible games, but there was so many genuine, bona fide, 100% undisputed classics on that console. The number of games on that which I can go back and play again that's the first real thing I can go back and genuinely want to play these things.
I understand that. My running joke has been that I would put somebody who says that Doom 3 was just a cakewalk. I would put somebody who loved that and thought it was just easy up against the Atari 2600 Adventure game. Now, I don't know how well you might remember that one. I was scared out of my wits every time one of the dragons would suddenly just pop its head out of the side if you weren't expecting it, and all of a sudden, coming out of the speaker, this giant mechanized roar, I guess.
Yeah, I never played Adventure, so I don't know that. Now, I mean, going to a slightly older system would be the Atari ST, Dungeon Master, and the first playing Dungeon Master, and you're turning around and finding a mummy there that attacks you. That would frequently make me jump out of my skin. Legend of Grimrock, of course, has done a pretty good job of recreating that. I strongly recommend, if you like old school style adventures, Legend of Grimrock, totally worth your time.
Sounds like a fun time. Some folks can probably find some of these systems at flea markets or secondhand gamer shops. There seem to be a lot more of those than I remember, where you can find some of the older machines and the older games, and even some combo players and emulators at this point. We can find a lot of these, no?
Yeah, well, everything I would do in an emulator these days, it's really, it's so much effort to get the old stuff. Of course, if you have a Wii, you can play many of the old Super Nintendo games on that through the store.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, but you really need the classic controller for that as well.
Yeah, but I mean, you consider that's a pitiful small investment, where all of a sudden you've got the ability of playing all this other stuff at what, $2, $3 a shot.
They're pretty cheap. Yeah, I'll admit that I cheat, and I have a Super Nintendo emulator on my iPhone and on my Nexus, and I actually have a hacked Wii which has every single Super Nintendo game ever on it. Most of which I haven't played, but it's all there because I just wanted to have a box under my TV that could play all these games.
Fair enough. And one guy that I know from the tech circles goes by the name of Unrenowned Tech is just saying there's a GameStop. Sir, wait a second. The Game Shop, quote, Play and Trade, near where he lives, has a Sega Master System still available for sale. That goes back a little ways.
That goes back, yeah.
Man.
That was 8-bit system. It had a Z80 CPU, if I remember correctly. And they had the idea that they would have these cards, but most of the games ended up coming on the cartridges because the cartridges had more memory. And ultimately, the cards stopped being used.
And then CDs.
Yeah, now I remember Sega, they actually got sued over that by Atari because they used the 9-pin joystick connector that was in the original Atari VCS, which
yes.
Atari had a patent on. So Atari won all this patent judgment money.
Wait a minute. Atari had a patent on the 9-pin COM connector?
For joystick control with those specific joystick mappings.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it turned out that you could take like a joystick from an old Atari 2600, plug it into a Sega Master System, and the controls would actually map everything sensibly.
Yeah.
I mean, most games you couldn't actually play because they needed more than one button, but it was actually a solid map. It was a correct mapping. So yeah, Atari sued Sega over that. They won a bunch of money, and then they plowed it into their personal console project called the Jaguar.
Yes, I remember that flop.
Yeah. Aliens versus Predator, though.
Yeah,
and Tempest 2000.
Yeah, but still.
Tempest 2000, though. Come on. Jeff Minter. Jeff Minter is the king.
Yeah, but...
Space Giraffe.
Yeah, no.
Yeah...
I'm not hearing much in the way of convincing here.
No, because I did a thing.
How about we just agree that Jeff Minter is awesome?
I think I can go with that.
Okay, good.
We'll live with that.
Space Giraffe.
It's just you're killing me now.
What? Space Giraffe is.
I will have to look that one up and check about that one because I don't recall that one.
It's you can get it on Steam, and it's kind of like Tempest but crazier with animal sound effects.
Wait a second. Did you do a vid with that?
It turned up in one of my live streams because I wanted to show people how amazing it looked.
Yes, that I remember then. I have to look that one up again sometime. Anyway, like I said, way over time of what I intended to because I am just enjoying the hell out of talking with you way too much. And I would love to be able to talk with you again sometime when I can actually go, I need to put a 30-minute clock over here and just ding. Because I love talking with you. I've enjoyed the hell out of your sense of humor, your pyrotechnics, and your ability to just look at stuff and go, well, that didn't work right. Let's try this again.
Let's try that exact same thing again until it works. Right?
You're killing me. The more times that I've cared to count where I've done exactly the same thing and only to find out, I keep clipping the tower. I can rotate my thing 45 degrees and not clip the tower now. Good. Okay, we're good.
Problem solved.
That's amazing. Anyway.
Yes, science.
Science is geometry, actually, at that point, because you're turning full pieces. Science, math, whatever the hell it is. Anyway. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. As one dad to another, my little one has enjoyed seeing yours for what it's worth. So his kids, by the way, are Orion and Skye with an E. Yep. It's important to remember with an E.
And Skye has more kill males than most other 8-year-olds in Eve. She's killed more other pilots.
Oh, God. That's wonderful.
Yes.
And it kind of ends up being kind of funny because your kids are Orion and Skye, which are obviously direct references to the Skye and the...
Well, Skye is a reference to the Isle of Skye in Scotland.
Well, yes. But, of course, more commonly for us, we would not think of that because, unfortunately, we don't always understand that, there's geography outside of the 50 states sometimes. In my case...
Well, isn't Britain the 51st state or something?
That's Puerto Rico, actually, from what I'm understanding at this point. We'll see how that plays. My daughter is actually named for the goddess of the morning. For the Northern Lights. So, it turns out...
Aurora?
Correct.
So that's Skye's middle name.
I did not know that.
She uses it as her surname because Manley is not a girly thing.
Oh, she's that age, is she?
She gets that way sometimes.
Okay. Well, I will be more than happy to inform my little one that there is actually a shared commonality there. That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Meantime, again, thank you.
We gotta get going.
Yes, we got to get going because we could. If one of these days we ever get to either of our coasts at the same time, I would love to spend some time talking with you over coffee because I don't do beer. But I thank you for your time. You've been so exceedingly generous with me. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this.
Well, I'm just glad to I don't know, just glad to talk.
Well,
I hope I'm not keeping you up too late.
No. As a matter of fact, my show is actually going to end up going another hour when I'm going to finish off.
Aha, what are you doing? You're playing tunes or talking?
Well, at this point, what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to play out for you with Def Leppard Rocket, just because.
Rocket, yeah. You playing the 80s stuff?
Right. However...
I actually have a question for you. As an American, this is something I discovered recently, just in the last couple of days.
Okay.
Now, when I was a kid, everybody in Britain, everyone my age, knew about Jeff Wayne's musical version of War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. And in fact, we get played this in school by our teachers. It's one of the best-selling albums in history in Britain. I just apparently realized in the last couple of days that nobody in America knows about this.
Correct. I can't speak
never
for
heard.
everyone.
You haven't heard of this? No,
I have not. No.
Look it up. War of the Worlds by Jeff Wayne. It's pretty darn good.
Did you make was there a YouTube vid that you liked or faved recently?
I favorited it recently. Yes.
Okay, then I did see that. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it is. I've got an American on the line here. I should ask this. Because, it's kind of from the same era. Well, maybe a little earlier. It was late 70s, early 80s. Had Phil Lynott from Thin Lizzy on that album. And other people who are less famous. But, yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, Def Leppard, Rocket. Yeah, I love the drums on that. That they were a band I really liked as a kid.
Yeah, and they got damn lucky, too.
They got darn lucky in many ways, yes.
In a way. So, since we're actually going to be, since I will be coming up onto the last hour of the show anyway, normally, since you've never heard about this part, the last hour of the show is just dedicated, up to this point, it's music, my newscast, secondary podcast, more music, and then the last hour is dedicated to just TV show themes and movie themes and cartoon themes and game music and the occasional commercial that I pull in. So if you'd like to listen in to the stream and throw a couple of items out at me of stuff that you might remember, I may or may not necessarily
I seriously suggest you should play the first, the eve of the war with the whole intro and the big theme. I'm Eve of the War, Jeff Wayne. Seriously, look that up. And play the intro with Richard Burton. Richard Burton married Liz Taylor, dude.
Yes.
So yeah, that would be my interesting random suggestion, but
well, unfortunately, that one I don't have at this time, but I will certainly have to go looking for that.
Yeah, you should give it a listen.
I will do that. Otherwise,
I'm just trying to think what else. I don't think I have anything that's movie themed. Game music, my goodness.
Or was there a TV show, a cartoon that you remembered from your youth that you would suddenly be like, you know what? I kind of remember. Did you ever see? Do you have this?
Oh man, my brother has given me this Thundercats T-shirt, and I always get people commenting on the Thundercats shirt. So I remember the Thundercats theme.
Yeah, Thundercats is old for me to be.
Actually,
I've had
if
that.
you want to go really old school, the Thunderbirds theme.
I've got a couple of versions of that.
Yeah, the whole brass section and everything.
I can do that.
Oh yeah, and actually no, for straight up genuinely awesome music. And this maybe is a little outside of this. Enter the Dragon theme. Bruce Lee.
Ooh. I don't think that I have that.
Enter the Dragon is an amazing tune. It's funky and like, you know, culturally significant on so many levels. You should look that one up and play it sometime.
That one I do not have. I will have to. Don't remember. I've been doing this for a little over 3 years now, and I will before my motherboard problem, I would normally be able to grab whatever I could. I'm not going to give away all my secrets, but I would usually be able to download stuff simultaneously while doing other stuff. But right now, because of the way that the stuff is, if I push my system too hard, the whole thing will lock, which is a really bad thing.
Okay, so I don't want to send you any files over. Yeah, the theme, Enter the Dragon theme was by Lalo Schifrin, who of course is more famous for the Mission Impossible theme, just so you know.
The original, back when it was still good.
Yes. The remixed theme that was done for the movies was by the rhythm section of U2.
Yeah, no. Not my idea of fun, that one. But we'll see what we can do. Thunderbird's easy enough I can do. I could be a right honorable bastard and find Paddington Bear in here somewhere. Just
God, no.
I'm sorry.
I'm honestly trying to think of stuff from my youth that really is genuinely worth listening to rather than just comically bad.
See, now I got people who are throwing items over at me, and they're just like, you got to do Thundercats now. Okay, fine. Got to do Mortal Kombat. Well, okay, fine.
No, Mortal Kombat. I always thought that was terrible. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And you know, for game music, my favorite video game tune from the 1980s would be the Thala music theme. That's the Rob Hubbard's theme from Sanction, which probably is a really hard one to, if you haven't heard it. But there's some really good remixes of that. And a lot of people may not have heard of it. It's like chip tune classic.
Yeah, and that I don't have either. Oh, and only because you just said it and I didn't think about it. When I get down to this point of the show, which is called the home stretch, there are no time limits any longer at this point. So it doesn't have to be the 80s. I've got stuff that goes back from the 50s up to a couple of years ago. So...
Oh, man, I don't know. Oh, and...
somebody else is throwing out at me bananas and pajamas. Fine.
Oh, do you have the punk version of the Banana Splits theme?
I don't think I've got a punk version. I do have Banana Splits.
1 tequila, 2 tequila, 3 tequila, floor.
No, I know I don't have that then.
No. It's Oh, it's the Dickies. The Dickies did the version of the Banana Splits theme.
Who also did the theme for Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yes.
Creepy and fun all at the same time. Gotta
La
love
la
it.
la 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 la.
I get people over here.
Yeah, it was actually reused recently in the soundtrack to Kick-Ass. That's where I remember it. But it was not new before that.
We'll see about that. Great. Now I got people who are making reference to Betty Boop and Dungeons and Dragons. So yeah, apparently I got a bunch of stuff I'm going to have to get to momentarily.
Okay.
Which is fine and wonderful. If you would like to listen and tune in, I would love. You can.
I believe you've given me the link. I have to record some audio. That's the problem. I'm running out of time there.
Okay. Which, if that's the case, then perhaps there will be another night where catch you suddenly pop me and saying, "Hey, play this."
Maybe.
Oh. No promises, but maybe it could happen.
It could happen. There's a lot of things. Actually, it's more likely that I do this during the day when I can listen rather than have to do things.
You got more than enough to do. In the meantime, let me go ahead and get you out of here for the 4th, 5th, 8th time. Way too long. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Scott Manley. Notice
I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe. Right?
You know, one of these days I should actually have something where I can say, "Look, could you just say a bumper for me? I want you to say this for my show." Oh, you know what? Why the hell not? could you just give me, I'm Scott Manley, you're listening to the Wednesday Night 80s Bash, and I'll actually have I will have...
Is it Wednesday Night 80s Bash?
Yes. The real name is, you're not going to do this. The real name of it is The Feline Conspiracies Wednesday Night 80s Bash. Don't do that.
No, I totally am going to do that.
You seriously?
Hello,
I'm sorry.
This is Scott Manley, and you're listening to the Feline Conspiracies Wednesday Night 80s Bash. That didn't work so well, did it?
No.
Hello, I'm Scott Manley, and you're listening to the Feline Conspiracies.
Okay. Seriously this time. Okay.
Hello, it's Scott Manley here, and you're listening to the Feline Conspiracies 80s Night Bash. Damn it. This is why I'm not a voiceover artist.
You know what? How about I see about
Fly
having...
safe. I bet I do that. I can say that.
That's perfectly fine. I think that's close enough. I'll get you to do it for me another time, and maybe it'll actually sound professional and all. But in the meantime,
I'm a professional. I'm just not a professional voiceover dude.
that's okay. I'm not a professional radio guy either, so it works out good. You have yourself a great night. Thank you for your time, and like I said, I hope I'll get the chance to talk with you again sometime and have like something like real to talk specifically about instead of just meandering all over the place.
I do that very well, though. We all know that when you're orbiting a planet, the best way to get from A to B is generally via C.
I thought the best way to get from point A to point B was bad brakes. We'll see about it later. Meantime, Scott Manley, thank you. And like I said, I'm playing you out with Rocket. We're back for the home stretch in a little bit, folks.
Satellite Love.